It's amazing to me if we can bring in Mark Montgomery. Admiral, thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate it. I mean, nobody can give us perspective like you can. When you look at the mission overall, and on the left-hand side of the screen, we are using some of these satellite images. We still don't know the totality of the damage that actually happened on the ground in Isfahan as you go through Fordo and Natanz and so on and so forth. But when you see the mission described to you, Admiral, you have got to be proud. You have got to think, wow, this thing was precise.
You know, I agree completely, Trace. I think it showed both a good, deliberate plan from the United States. I mean, a good mix of both air and naval assets. And, you know, that Air Force mission, you know, is a complex one, the delivery of a unique piece of ordnance. It's only been used really in a testing capacity in the past, mixed with a more traditional weapon, the Tomahawk fired from the submarines. I think the other bit of integration we have to acknowledge here is how well the Israeli Defense Forces and the U.S. Central Command have integrated. So General Carrillo, working with his IDF partners, we knew exactly what the IDF had done at Natanz and Esfahan. You know, they'd taken out about 75% of each of those targets. We hit the rest of those targets, and we took probably, Esfahan was called inoperable a few days ago. I would now say it's much more fully destroyed. So this combination of U.S. and Israeli, this integration, both in intel sharing and planning and target selection, I mean, that is an impressive event, and I think General Carrillo at Central Command deserves a lot of the credit for that.
And with that question, let's bring in Mark Montgomery again. Admiral, I'm wondering if you think that's a fair assessment, because you're pleased and you're, at the same time, you're a little bit confused at the strategy going in. What do you think?
No, I agree with General Kimmett. I think there's some deception involved in that. You know, you don't want to say, I'm done with them, I'm attacking tonight. I mean, you are. I think the B-2s are very, you know, the stealth in it was secure enough that they weren't threatened. You know, they wouldn't have been taken down in any case. But the deception helps. The second thing is it did allow us to flow more defensive capabilities into theater, because, you know, I'm sure we'll talk about it in a bit, but there is a threat of a counterstrike here. And then it also allowed us to complete the ordered departure of our military families that were stationed in Bahrain, Qatar, and some other locations throughout the Middle East. So it did give us it gave us less people to protect, more equipment to protect them. As you know, we have about 40,000 soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine Guardians in the Middle East right now, and we needed to make sure that was done. So I think those few days were used wisely, and then they also teed up a deception effort.
If we can put this up on the screen now, this is a picture before this bombing, before the bunker buster bombs came in today. This is the picture we're about to see, I'm assuming. There it is right there. So this is pre-bombing right here, Admiral. And if you look at this, we have been told that what the focus was on the ventilation systems. They were looking at the ventilation systems because you have to have air. And if there's a way inside, you want to get in the ventilation systems. And that's where these bunker busters were focused. But it's kind of fascinating to think, how in the world, as Aaron was saying, do you prep? And how amazing it is that you can be spot on when it comes to looking at this from the air.
Well, you know, General Wetherington spoke well about this, but this is you know, I can go back 15 years in my career, not necessarily Fort Dow, but other you know, the use of the massive ordnance penetrator, the development of it, the constant practice and exercise, and the constant review of targeting. I'm comfortable. No mission's an easy mission. He's absolutely right. They're all hard missions. But, you know, the goal of the military is to make really hard things routine. Break them up into little pieces of routine operation, and then stitch them all together into an impressive operation. And that's exactly what was done here. And it wasn't done yesterday or last week or last month, but it was done over 2 decades. And so I'm not surprised. You know, they're showing us these pictures now. I promise you, those vent ducts, the entrances, the weak points have been assessed. We're not going to know the exact, unless there was an intense seismic event at the time of this attack, or some really good piece of BDA, very immediate BD, battle damage assessment. We're not going to know the results of this strike for a little bit of time, but the experts who plan this strike know what to look for, know what effect they expected to see, and if they see it, they'll have the telltale indicators that they were probably successful. So a very complex thing, executed in a series of routine events, you know, from the refuelings to the flight to the actual strike run from the targeting, from the intel, from the planning.
What about China, Admiral Montgomery? What about China? Do you believe there's going to be any kind of response or any kind of action by China because of this?
Well, first, I agree that the Straits of Hormuz being shut would really hurt China. So I think they're going to lean hard on Iran not to mine the Straits or threaten shipping in the Straits, because the economy that would be most damaged by that would be China, then India, Japan's. So I think they'll push there. I don't think they can provide temporal support, rapid support that would affect the current balance between U.S. and Israeli forces and Iranian defenders. So this is more about, will they long-term come to support them? Will they give them lip service in the United Nations, things like that? They probably will. This is a setback for the axis of aggressors, right? Iran, North Korea, Russia, China. Iran was the weak link. Israel hit them hard. Now the U.S. has come in. This is the first time we've stood up to them in a really effective way and pushed back on this. So we're going to see now how true those relationships are, whether they really are just transactional partnerships, because the United States and Israel are conducting an effective campaign against Iran, and they're not getting the kind of support that Russia, for example, has gotten from China, Iran, and North Korea in its fight against the democracy in Ukraine.